That is the beginning of dignity for yourself. And dignity for yourself, for me, is really the inception of cleanliness. And that is what makes cleanliness in our environment sustainable. And that's how I invite people to take it on board. You know, it's not just sweeping things, sweeping dust. And you see the sweeping is happening because of this Swachh Bharat campaign. But I also see sweep karke ek jagah ikhatta kar liya, you know, and then you start seeing these little mounds of rubbish that are there, and you have stretches that are really clean, but it hasn't quite cleaned, you know, and we do that for ourselves too. So cleanliness begins with you, it begins from within, and then it shows up outside.
Very, very, very true. And you talked about you talked about dignity and cleanliness and the cleanliness of the self. And I believe you're doing some very, very interesting work in this area. And I'm sure people over here would love to hear what does that really mean, and what are you really doing on that front?
Yes, thank you, Radhika. I mean, this was my epiphany, you know, going from being a corporate executive, really driven, to understanding that we live in a world which has got many facets. So if we are truly to move forward in a way that is fulfilling to us, its full spectrum well-being is what is needed, where you're thriving physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, and environmentally. And at the foundation of all of that is dignity. And it was that really got me to look at what was going on in the world where systems, structures weren't working. You know, and a good example I saw was, you know, a tree only has value once it is chopped. In the forest, it has no value. So forests got chopped, and lo and behold, we are all affected by the climate change crisis. And that was lack of dignity of trees, right? Commoditizing them. We see that with the bees, we see that with human beings, you know, let's just look at the news coverage that is going on off late. So that gave birth to the idea of dignity being lifted from being fringe to becoming mainstream to actually even becoming center stage. Because when dignity becomes center stage, it is not at the cost of anything. When dignity becomes center stage, it actually enriches whatever it is that it is a part of, as opposed to what happened with economy. So hence, what we are doing is convening the World Dignity Forum here in India, and we are bringing together solutionaries, people who have got solutions for women, for children, for adults, for elders, for the water, for soil, for our rivers, you know, for the environment, for health, for happiness, where dignity is at the center of it. There are some amazing, amazing examples of what is happening in India, just like we talked about the village in Meghalaya. There are others like that too in India itself. But they're not being showcased. They're not necessarily even being connected to one another to know that together we can do even more. So the World Dignity Forum literally connects the dots. We are bringing leaders from around the world into India. We are showcasing leaders from India across the world and really amplifying this, connecting the dots. That in itself will make a big difference to the world at large.
Very interesting, because you've been traveling the world. I know you've gone all over, from Europe to the US, right across. And over the many years, you've shared some of your observations of what you think are wonderful, clean practices that enhance the dignity of society. Why would you like to share some of that?
Yeah, I'd love to share a couple of them. One is an example that I got from Bali. I lived in Bali for 9 years. And, you know, Bali it's a Hindu state. They're very, very religious. They have lots and lots of ceremonies, literally every other day. And every ceremony, that is more important than their jobs. So the Balinese people will go to the temple when there is a ceremony. And there would be hundreds of people every time there was a prayer. There'll be hundreds of people that would gather in the temples. They'll have their offering, they'll have their flowers, the agarbatti and all of that, as well as the prasad. And I remember 9 years ago when I first went there, it would be like you would move things about to find your place just in case you didn't get there, you weren't the first one going there. But really what the communities decided was that it was not good enough to have ceremonies happening like that. So, what they have is that every community, every panchayat has a set of people from the village. Every time there's a ceremony, their sole job is to go and clean up after every ceremony. So just like when you see Wimbledon and stuff, when the ball falls, there are these little kids that come and just take the ball away. So it is literally like that. The ceremony finishes, this bunch of people from the local village just come and clean it all up. And there were dustbins which never used to be there. So that was a very simple thing. And it really has transformed the whole Bali experience. Another
Wonderful.
thing, just one more thing in Bali, which I thought was really lovely, is every Friday, every child, regardless of what type of school you go to, goes to the school with a broom. So you see these children in their school uniforms carrying a broom to school, and their job is to clean not just their classroom, but the areas around the classroom and the street that the school is in. So you suddenly have all these really clean
How
streets.
wonderful! How wonderful! I think that's part of what we as a society have to pick up, and it really comes back to one of the topics that had been raised, which is dignity of labor, and the fact that you have to do things on your own with your hands. Again, I know you're doing some very interesting work with regards to dignity of labor as far as farmers are concerned. Why don't you talk about that as well?
See, a couple of things I want to talk about the farming side. India is famous for many things that we are all really proud of. It is also famous for farmer suicides. Now, what that has done is it has brought into India lots of money from lots of foundations, has come into the villages to support the rehabilitation of families of farmers who have committed suicide. The issue of why the farmer commits suicide is a dignity issue that is not being addressed. So one of the things that we are doing is we are inviting, and we've actually in discussion in Maharashtra about it, is to create like a model village where dignity is at the heart. And there we are inviting each person in that particular village to take the dignity pledge. And it would be very interesting to see what effect that has, literally within 12 months of everybody choosing to take one act of kindness every single day for themselves.
So that's interesting. So what exactly, talk about the dignity pledge and what is the kind of work that you want to do in that area?
So the World Dignity Forum, it's an invitation for everyone to sign up to the Dignity Declaration, which literally overarches this whole clean India campaign or Clean Uganda campaign. Dignity Declaration is at the foundation and the umbrella, which is to honor, build, and preserve dignity in self, in communities with all inhabitants, and the environment with kindness, respect, and cooperation for a peaceful, sustainable, and abundant world. Having set the declaration, it is all-encompassing. So what can you do right here, right now? What can a child do? What can a corporate executive do right here, right now? And so that's where we bring in the Dignity Pledge, which is we invite people to take the Dignity Pledge, which is I take the pledge to do one act of kindness every day to honor, build, and preserve dignity for myself. For dignity begins with me.
Yeah, how wonderful is that? Did you think that was wonderful? One act of kindness every day to honor, build, and preserve your own dignity, your own self. Is that something that is so beautiful? Thank you so much for that, Meenu. And I think on that note, okay, fine. So on that note, we end this conversation. Thank you so much, Meenu, and thank you so much. You've been a lovely crowd out there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meenu and Radhika. So, in the name of dignity, let us begin, right? Now, while we are talking about dignity and as we are talking about the dignity of a planet, human beings and society, we are governed by laws. We live according to an arrangement of some kind of laws, some social contracts between each other, right, over a period of time. And these laws have been codified over a period of time as our cultures have developed. And how we look at environment and how we look at issues related to environment, what is allowed, what is not allowed. And then coming to the contemporary era, industry, okay, what are the issues of industry? And even industry, we need development, okay, development may not mean industry, but whatever it implies, if there is an impact on environment, till what extent can humankind go to impact the environment and our planet Earth? So that's why we were very happy when our colleagues and partners at the Indian Lawyers Association, led by Shweta, an amazing leader, amazing builder of communities. She builds communities together very nicely, those who know her. And we discussed that it'll be good to kind of have a short discussion about law and environment, okay? And we kept it as an open question to them. So let us see what they come out with their interpretations of this topic. But of course, the idea is the Clean India Day, and we had left it for your creativity and contemplation, okay? Shweta, may I invite you please, and then you may invite your colleagues for a conversation.
Thank you, Rabinder, and happy birthday once again. For those who came in late, so Earl Warren once said, "It is the spirit and not the form of law that keeps justice alive." India is the most populous democracy in the world. The legal system of our country has evolved from religious prescription to a constitutional one. Post-independence, the Indian legal system has prospered to become an essential ingredient of the world's largest democracy. We are a country of 1.3 billion people living in a diverse culture with many religions, languages, customs, and practices. For us to all live together as society, we must have a strong law and order in place. With the view to keep the spirit of justice alive among the Indian society, it is important that 1.3 million lawyers have an organization that unifies them and provides a platform across the country where members can network, exchange ideas, mentor, connect to create more wealth and altogether strengthen the legal community. Indian Lawyers Association began its initiatives 8 months ago when the founding president directors behind it had the vision to build an organization to further the interests of the individuals engaged and aspire to be engaged in the legal profession. It has been launched with a view to promote the interests and progress of aspiring lawyers in India and to serve as an educational forum and an active voice for the legal community of our diverse country. ILA is a voluntary professional organization which brings together under one roof all the different branches in the law profession. ILA was launched in India on 1st January and has already set a base in 100+ cities with over 100 chapters. It has made great strides in the 7 months of its existence, even in the grassroots of India like Auraya, Chandrapur, Sikkim, among others, with the duty representing of 1.3 million lawyers of India. ILA leaders are givers and donate their time and money to make the legal fraternity of their city stronger. ILA has taken a social cause like Clean India today and working with IMAG India for the past 3 months on this initiative. The 100+ chapters are performing Clean India activities this week to support the initiative in different ways. Now I would like to introduce our distinguished panel, and I thought we'd discuss the plastics ban law today and its implementation. We have Shashank Saxena, Senior Manager, Climate Change and Sustainability, E&Y. Alok Krishna Agarwal, Advocate, Supreme Court of India and founder, partner, Sheldon Law Firm.
Hello.
So Shashank, you've been working with a lot of corporates with E&Y, and with this recent plastics ban, tell us what has been your experience and what has been the advisory and what has been the strategy you've been advising.
So I'll just, first of all, thanks a lot for, making us a representative over here. And so what I am going to talk about is very briefly regarding what is basically this plastic ban all about. So coming up with a brief introduction that how this thing has gone into the mainstream this year is basically on the World Environment Day, along with the representative UN and the major representatives, the government and the other institutions have taken the beat plastic pollution as one of the major initiative across the globe. So that's why it has basically come into the mainstream. However, India has a rule which has come out in 2011. The implementation, however, is not very strict, but there has been a rule from 2011 onwards on the plastic waste management, which was under the Environmental Protection Act. The rule have got changed over the years, so basically there has been a much more of implementation which need to be done on the India, at the ground level, rather than basically coming out with the legal laws. There has been like two, amendments which has happened in the law from 2011 to 2016, and then the law again got changed in 2018. And then in 2016, they have talked about something called EPR, which is basically how organizations can basically work together and bring something which is help in the reducing the plastic in the environment. So now the states and basically the CPCB have got a specific role what they have to play into reducing the plastic, to collaborate with the producers as well as the brand owners. And there is a kind of chain activities which has been defined in the law now to implement in the India.
And do you see a lot of corporates following the laws?
Yeah, so we now see a lot of trend. The global corporates which are working in India, as well as certain, Indian corporates which are going ahead and basically developing a strategy which they can implement if they are like operating within India or basically in different states. So a state-wise or basically a kind of a strategy which they can implement at a corporate level. So basically the entire chain of plastics from where they are procuring and how it is going, and different kind of solutions they are looking for into some buyback solutions, or basically it should not go either into oceans or into the landscapes, but it should come back to the mainstream. Either they are planning to develop some systems to collaborate with other industries for burning, like cement industries in clean, using it as a fuel or something. But there is a lot of initiative which has been taken by the corporates now. And there are certain corporates, like you can say certain apparel industries which are working, in India. They are also taking the initiatives globally, and now it is somehow coming to India year on year.
Okay. And Alokji, you've done a lot of work with the NTPC, and so tell us of what your experience has been.
Yeah, thank you, Shweta, and thank you, Shashank. I have been mainly a litigating lawyer. Environment and cleanliness, they go hand in hand. Till 2001, 2002, 2003, the environment laws were not so supportive about what we have today, the Clean India campaign that we have today. It was really speaking somewhere in 2006 that we have the National Environment Policy. So 2006, I would say, would be a landmark year for the purposes of environment and cleanliness in India. And this particular policy, which was there in 2006, basically talked about, had ingrained in itself the sustainable development. Just a little while ago, something was said about the industry that has to grow. Yes, industry has to grow. And so the environment also has to remain clean. They have to both be hand in hand. We can't just have an industry growing at the cost of environment. So this national environment policy inhered in itself the concept of sustainable development. So that was one concept which was right in the center of the national environment policy. So the industry has to grow, but the environment laws have to take care of cleanliness as well. The second aspect that the National Environment Policy of 2006 also took into it was the principle which is the polluter pays. So till now, the polluters were going scot-free. So now the policy also talked about the polluter pays. So if you pollute, you pay. You compensate for a wrong that you have done. So these were two basic things which made the environmental law quite strong. The third was the precautionary principle, as we all know. The precautionary principle being that, look, you have to take due safeguards, you have to take due steps to see that you do not do anything wrong. This particular precautionary principle was also there in the oleum leak gas, which was there before the Supreme Court. Now in that case, the Supreme Court of India, for the first time, insofar as the Indian laws are concerned, brought about the absolute liability principle, meaning that even if you take due regard, due safeguards, due steps, and you still cause some kind of a harm, then even then the law will visit you and you will have to pay. So there was a framework which 2006 onwards is developing, it is evolving, it is on a day-to-day basis becoming very strong, I would say. And yes, the plastics are a day-to-day discussion. The plastic litter all over is there. So there are a lot of cases in the National Green Tribunal about this. So the environmental law, the cleanliness is there right in front of us. That's how it is.
Okay, and you see that people are actually trying to follow the law now.
Yes. So things are get